Hey, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here. We're going behind the mic here on the How to Podcast series, creating an immersive audio experience for your podcast. There you go. Nice to have you here. This is going to be our third in the series around taking you behind the microphone. We talk a lot about audience building and growing our show and all of these great things, all important. Very important. But it all starts on this side of the mic as you talk into it, as you build your show. This is where it all starts, with you. And I want to invest in you through the podcast. So thank you for being here. Let's jump in. Creating an immersive audio experience for your listeners in podcasting is such a powerful way to engage with those that click play on your show. And it really helps you to elevate your storytelling. It's immersive. Think of a pool. You jump in, you're immersed in the pool. You're surrounded by it. You're everywhere you look, right? You're surrounded by the water in the pool. In podcasting, we're jumping into content. We're jumping into stories. We're jumping into an audio experience. For those who do video, a video experience where we surround our community and our audience with the podcast. So I wanted to talk today about how to leverage various audio techniques to enhance your podcast and make it even better than it's ever been. And some of these things are going to require an editor if you're not tech savvy and you're like, I don't know how to do this. I would love to show you how to do this in Audacity, which is what I prefer to use. It's a free program, doesn't cost you anything. You can use it on an Apple device or a Windows device, which is great. And like I said, it's free. So you can't beat that. It's a great thing. It's been around for 20 years plus. And I've been using it since basically it first came out for music editing and all of that. So my music editing side of me really loves Audacity. And now I'm adapting it to podcasting. So that's why I love to use it. And there's other tools, obviously. There's paid ones, which are really expensive. Some of them are. A lot of tools and buttons you don't really need for spoken audio. But again, Audacity is my default. I love it. I use it all the time. And I love to show you how to use it. So anytime, howtopodcast.ca. Let's get together. We'll pull up a screen share. And I'll show you how I use it for podcasting. And maybe it'll speed you up in the journey of doing some editing. I think that we can add things to our podcast which can really make things interesting for the listener and something that just stands out from just a talking podcast. And it's funny because I listen to other podcasts about podcasting and sometimes I hear people say, skip all that intro stuff, skip all that stuff, just start talking. I pressed play on a podcast recently and I thought that I had pressed the middle of the episode because there was no beginning. It was just I caught it in the middle of the conversation, kind of like radio where you get in the car, you turn the key on and radio is already happening. It doesn't just start when you get in the car. It's like a parade. You kind of joined it halfway through and you're like, what did I miss? And you don't know what you missed. So I don't really love the idea that you press play on a podcast and somebody's automatically talking to you and you feel like you missed the context of the conversation and you're trying to mentally figure out what happened here. What did I do wrong? I like a beginning, I like a middle, and I like an end. It's kind of like a book. That's kind of what they do. And in podcasting, I think that we need to have some pretty clear indicators that we're starting the show. This is the show. And thanks for listening to the show. It's something as a listener that really helps us to connect. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of my filter as we jump into this today. So there's a lot of things we can do in podcasting that can really add flavor to your podcast and to what people are going to hear in the podcast. So here's some ideas around creating an immersive audio experience. If you want to hear Dave playing with Audacity, and, kind of pushing all the buttons and doing all the things. I did an episode where I did some fake commercials in my podcast, which were fun. I'll put a link to that in the notes if you want to go listen. That's Dave just playing around with sounds and different layers, music and effects and all kinds of stuff. And I made 3 like fake commercials just so that I could make a commercial because I wanted to play in Audacity. So they're Dave being silly. And if you want to hear Dave being silly, then go ahead and press play on those. And then if you want to hear Dave like to the max, then go over and check out the Daily Santa podcast. I know it's not December when I'm recording this, but there's 25 episodes where sometimes in some of the recordings, there's over 25 different tracks, like individual tracks, all over top of each other, multiple voices, music, sound effects. There's just so many layers to that podcast. And that's Dave on 11. Just so you know, the Daily Santa Podcast, dailysantapodcast.com is a website for that one. It's a kids podcast, and it's all around helping kids become good humans leading up to Christmas, kind of like a countdown to Christmas, 25 episodes in a row in the month of December. A really fun podcast. My wife is completely in love with one of the characters. His name is Selfie. He's Santa's social media elf, and all he does is cause mayhem in every episode. He's quite a lot to handle. And Selfie, social media elf, Selfie. Yeah. Anyways, you get it. Go there if you want to hear that as well. I'll put a link to the Daily Santa podcast in the notes as well. And I'd love for you to, if you want to smile, or if you got small kids, it's a kids podcast. It's all made for kids. And especially if they love anything to do with Christmas and all that, there you go. It's something for them to listen to and laugh and maybe fall to sleep at night listening to. It's really quite fun. Anyways, it's the Daily Santa podcast. Now, these two, my commercials, which I'll put a link in for you if you haven't heard them, and the Daily Santa podcast are examples of what I'm really trying to talk about here on the show around creating an immersive audio experience. It's not just Dave's voice like this with nothing behind it. There's something going on in behind that just kind of makes it feel a little more engaging, and it puts you into the podcast as a listener, and it's a really fun thing to do. And I love when people don't overdo it. I like it when it's tastefully done, and I think you can do this in pretty easy steps, and here's a few ideas. First of all, if you want nature sounds, there's this door on your house that when you turn the door handle, it opens, and you can actually, step outside. And what you can do is just take your phone, and when you go for a walk, just hit record, and just record nature as you're walking through the forest behind your house. You got the crackling of the sticks beneath your feet, the leaves rustling in the wind, a random bird flying by, or that owl, all that stuff in the background. You're just going for a walk. And that can actually be a track that you put behind you and kind of like a bed that you talk over. It's simple. You don't need to pay anybody. Just go outside, take your phone, hit record. There you go. If you want a sound of a busy market or cars zipping by on the street, just go outside and hit record on your phone. The world is at your fingertips, and you can get all the sounds that you want. And I would just say to you again, use them sparingly and make sure that they are a bed. They're not overpowering your voice, where I'm struggling to hear you because it's so loud and you're so quiet that I can't even hear what you're saying. Make sure it's really just there quietly in the background, but it just sets the tone. It's so nice. So like if I had a campfire going right now, for example, right? So here's a campfire. You can kind of hear like it snapping, crackling. I want to get my s'mores out, like my chocolate and marshmallow and graham crackers, and I just need a s'more right now. I need a s'more. Anyone? There's no one here. The cat's not being helpful. No, she's sleeping. So I can't, yeah, so I'm on my own. Anyways, I'm really kind of jonesing for that. And then now the smoke's in my eye, and you're just like, there's something you're supposed to say to make the smoke move, something about rabbits or something. I don't know, bunny rabbits, anyway, which will redirect the smoke to the people on the other side of the fire. That's what's happening right now. And I smell like smoke. And I love going to bed at night, like when you're camping, and then you go to bed and you put your head on the pillow, and just the smell of the campfire as you're trying to fall asleep at night in a tent, right? Like you're there with me, right? There's like all the sounds of the night and camping. So nice, right? This is what I'm talking about. This is like, instead of me trying to make you think about a fire, you can hear the fire. It's right there. I want to go stir up the embers right now. And little things like this are a simple way for you to kind of bring people into what you're saying and kind of put them into the moment. It's not overbearing. It's not overpowering my voice. You can still hear me. It's just there. If you want this soundtrack, just record your next fire when you're camping. It's there. So just create this atmosphere by bringing in elements to your podcast. Just make it a little bit better. So in Canada right now, we're dealing with snow. It's the the end of February. When you go for a walk in the snow, you can hear the sound of the snow beneath your boots. Makes that kind of sound. What would it sound like if I could try to explain it to you? It's like a crinkling sound, squishing sound, kind of hard, but soft at the same time. You can actually hear the footsteps of you walking through the snow. If there was only a way to capture that and put that into my podcast, as I'm talking about going out into the forest to, go for a walk in my podcast. I wonder if there was a way. Wait a minute. Yeah, here we go. This is Dave walking through the forest and me in the snow. It puts you in the moment, and it helps you to kind of identify what's happening in real time. What I love about this is just it puts you there in the moment. And I think as podcasters, we can add things like this, again, without going crazy. Like, you don't have to do like really amazing productions, but when you're talking about something specific, like a campfire or walking in the snow, you can add in these little elements, which just kind of sets your podcast apart from all the other podcasts, because you're doing something different, something unique and creative. Again, if this is not your thing and you're not sure how to do all this, then reach out to somebody like me who edits for other people. And we call this sound design. We call this a way to have something a little different for your show than what is a standard talking head podcast. Because, there's so many of those, and we want yours to be better. So capture some real environments. It's an easy thing to do. You can do it on your own with your phone. You can also go get sound effects from places like storyblocks.com, where I get my stuff too. There's a lot of great things out there, resources for you to just level up your podcast just a little bit more than maybe just one single voice talking. Try it. It's really great. Capture real environments. It's very helpful. And then just use surrounding sounds to add depth to your podcast. It's a great way to bring your listeners into what's happening in the moment, and they feel like they're right there beside you. We can also leverage sound design to enhance our storytelling. When we use background music, for example, and ambient sounds, it helps to create an emotional atmosphere. So, for example, something like this would be great if you were introducing something with royalty or the king. Ha-ha, ta-ta, and such. And I know what you're thinking. This is the music for Dave's rants. Yeah, you got me. But it's so regal. Right? Now the king enters the room. Da-da-da. All hail the king. Right? It just kind of, little things like that just are fun. I'm a big fan of fun. And your podcast, for those that have a fun podcast, should be fun. It's kind of a thing. It's in the name. It's fun. Let's put the fun in funnels. I don't know. I just love when people add little things like that. It just brings me in. So use music, use ambient sounds. These are all great ways to build suspense or build tension or calm a listener as well. There's sleep podcasts where the whole idea is to put you to sleep, which is terrible for advertising, by the way, because people are like, everyone's sleeping. No one heard my ad. But there's sleep podcasts and they have effects in the background that calm you and a calm voice as the host. Amazing. And they're not just talking on the microphone. They actually are putting in some sound design elements to make this podcast episodes even better. So think about how can you be creative in your show without going way too far in having it compete with your voice. What can you add that makes your podcast sound even more engaging? Simply by using stuff to set the mood. Another thing is you can use sound effects and things to guide the story as well. This could be a sound effect or a signal that gives somebody the notification that, well, we're going to do something different. You're going to hear that in a lot of my podcasts here, as I have a little sound that says, we're on to the next topic. And that brings up this, we're actually on our way to the next topic, using music and sound effects strategically. And now insert sound effect here. So some basic things to keep in mind here is to always keep it simple in your podcast. Don't overdo it. Don't overcrowd your episode with sound effects and unnecessary things. Watch your levels. Please be careful that you don't have a sound effect that is twice the volume of your speaking voice. Going to blow people's earbuds out of their ears. People are going to drive into the ditch because you have these sound effects. Be careful with anything that's like a fire truck, police car, because if you're driving on down the road and all of a sudden you hear a police car, you might panic and try to get over or cause an accident because some podcaster put a very loud police or fire sound, an emergency vehicle sound in the podcast, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get over. So please just be cautious. Remember, your listeners are listening in different environments. Don't make it overpowering. Don't make it twice, 3 times the volume. If anything, always make it less and give people a heads up if you're going to do something unique like a police siren. Okay, you just want to get in trouble. Keep it simple and keep it effective. And again, don't let it overpower. Highlight key moments. Use sound effects to emphasize important parts of your story. For example, that ding sound could suggest a new topic. And I love doing that here in this show. It kind of helps move along and you know you're moving with me as we cover these 4 main points. Here's 4 dings and off we go. That's how I do my show. Do the way you want to. But I like to have these broken up into pieces. And then you can also use it to help create a brand. Having music and sound effects in your podcast could become part of your branding element. People know you by your music. So the intro for my music here, it's the same every time. And it's Dave. This is the signal to start the show. When people hear your music on a regular basis, they get to know you. They know they're in the right place. Welcome to the show. Just like that. So these are all elements that become part of who you are and what you do in your show. And used tastefully, again, tastefully, not overdone, kind of like I'm doing here where I'm throwing everything at the fan here. Using these tools and using sound and everything will help your audience to connect with your podcast even better and then reinforce your brand. Another way to use music, sound effects, and all of that ambient noise that you can throw into your podcast is to do some things that make people feel like they're in the location that you're talking about. So if you're at a coffee shop, you'll have coffee shop background. Simple, throw your phone on the table, catch the sound of the cash register opening and closing, murmuring in the background, the coffee machine whirling, the doorbell as people come in and out of the restaurant, the coffee shop. All those things could be a nice little bed behind you as you're talking. Record on location. Right now, you want to be careful. Obviously, you're not recording people without permission, but in a general area, a public space, no problem. Just hit record on your phone. People won't even know you're doing it, really, and just capture the ambiance of the sounds around you in that space. Very helpful. This really helps listeners to feel like they're experiencing the story firsthand, like they're actually there with you. And it helps you to build more vivid scenes as well. And you can make it more of an intimate perspective by having these sounds and things that bring you into the conversation. So as podcasters behind the mic, we are presenting our best to our audience. And as an early podcaster, this might seem overwhelming to add all these elements to your podcast. And if that is overwhelming to you, then don't do it. Just get used to you speaking on the mic. These are all seasonings to add to the content. These seasonings aren't the content. You still have to have something to talk about. You still have to show up on the mic and hit record. And then all of these things we're talking about today here on this little mini series of Behind the Mic these are things that add some flavor and reinforce what you're saying. So at the beginning and end of this, what you're saying is more important than the sound effects and the music and all the things that happen to enhance what's happening in the show. But you can't enhance silence. You have to have something to talk about. You have to hit record. And I'm finding that there's so many people in podcasting who really want to be a podcaster, but they're so overwhelmed with all of the other stuff that they never even start. And it's sad because they have a message for the world. They're great people. And if they were podcasters and had their show active, they could reach an audience. You're going to learn something just by being a podcaster. Speaking, sharing your thoughts, preparing, being on the microphone, interviewing people, listening, building community. These are all things that are kind of outside of what's happening in podcasting, beyond just recording. You're going to learn a lot about yourself as well. So for my encouragement for you as we wrap up in this mini series today is to leverage audio and additional things that make your show better and more engaging, more fun, more serious, more introspective, more calming, more exciting. You set the tone for your show with your voice, with your content, with how you show up as a podcaster. But then you can add in these elements that just make things even more interesting for your audience. Don't be afraid. Play with these. And again, if you have no idea how to do this, I can show you this in Audacity. Again, free program. I'd love to show you how to use this tool. It's going to save you a lot of time. And the one bonus of Audacity, you don't have to be connected to the internet to use it. You can be out in the middle of nowhere with your laptop. As long as it's got battery power, you can actually just record right into your laptop with a USB mic. You're good to go. So it's a great tool. And again, you don't have to be connected to the internet to like all these other online tools. No, you can record anywhere, anytime you want. It's great. It's freeing, and it's portable, which I love. So I'm interested to know, do you use any elements in your podcast? Do you do anything that adds to the conversation, draws people in? I'd love to hear your show, and I'd love to follow you and give you support and ratings and reviews. I'll do all that because I think you're great. Reach out anytime, howtopodcast.ca, and I'd love to hear about your podcast and how I can support you on your journey to be a better podcaster. Whether you're just starting or been doing this for years, we can all improve. We can all get better. And sometimes we just need somebody to come beside us and go, hey, A, you're doing an amazing job. And B, here's a couple things I'm seeing or hearing that could really help you to connect with more people. And I'd love to help you in that way. howtopodcast.ca. Thanks for being here. More of Behind the Mic series coming up. And I hope these are little mini-series helping to encourage you to continue podcasting, to start your show, because we need you in podcasting. We need your voice. Yeah, we need you. You. We need you to create your show. And if you need help, howtopodcast.ca. Thanks for being here. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for listening to the entirety of the episode, including this part. You know what? A lot of people leave right now. So we'll let them leave. Give them a second to go. Okay, now it's just you and me. We have our meetups that we do for the How to Podcast series. We do them during the week, and we also do them on Saturdays. So twice a week, you have the opportunity to meet other podcasters, just like you. Some people have just started. Some people haven't even released an episode yet. Some have been doing it forever. And we get together and talk podcasting. We want to help you in community to continue with your show, to start your show, to grow your show. So come and meet listeners of this show in one space on meetup.com. Again, through howtopodcast.ca, you'll see the links. It's completely free to join. Come whenever you have an opportunity to come. There's no commitment. You don't have to sign any waivers. You can just come join us. Come join the conversation. We'd love to have you there, because the only thing that's going to make these meetups better is you being there. So I'm hoping you will say yes. And you'll say, Dave, I'm tired of podcasting by myself. I wish there were people I could connect with that are fellow podcasters and share my frustrations with guests who ghost me, and my editing software is crapping out on me, and I'm just having this hard time. I'm just having a hard time coming up with podcasts, episodes, and titles, and all the things, and social media. Wouldn't it be great to get in a room with other podcasters and share best practices and learn? 3 of our 4 Saturdays every month are themed. So you have a topic, but that last Saturday of every month is open question and answer. Ask anything. Come meet a podcaster. Come enjoy the podcasting community through howtopodcast.ca. Come to our meetups. Can't wait to see you there.